Hi everyone, Sonia Clark here again from Lead Business Education, bringing you some pocket training. Talking today about confidence and confidence building. How do you get confident when you're needing to speak to your clients, to your customers, to your end users, to your staff, to your colleagues, to your audience? How do you make sure that you come across quite confident and to then be confident and to help with your nerves just prior to a particular type of presentation? The good old-fashioned rule of practice is still king with it all. Practice, practice, practice. So the best ways to practice is to practice with a friend, with a colleague, with someone who's going to keep you accountable, in a mastermind group, with someone who, like a loved one, who's going to give you some very, be critiquing on it, but still in a loving way. And if you find that all still very, very hard to achieve, you know what? The dog. The dog loves it. The more that you speak to the dog, the more they wag their tail and they say, tell me more, tell me more. It's wonderful. But the most important thing there is that you're actually practicing out loud. So even if you can't necessarily practice with someone to their ear and get some feedback from it, at least practice out loud. Walk around home, walk around work, wherever you go. Practice in front of the mirror, believe it or not, is really, really good. And ultimately is to practice with recording yourself. So set up your camera, your phone, whatever. Put it on and practice in front of it that you're pitching straight towards someone, talking, training, coaching, consulting, but that's capturing not necessarily a front-on view, but a slightly side-on view or a completely side-on view. But like it's almost like another perspective, and then watch that back again. You'd be very surprised at what that third party perspective can actually pick up with your body language, with your tone of voice, how you're emphasizing on particular words, your breathing, any particular habits that you have. And we all have the little habits. I do the whole eye thing and the whole eye rolling. It's not fabulous, but making sure that it's still sounding very authentic to you, so it's not coming across as being too practiced, perfecting, but that it's still very, very human. If you have any errors, you just keep moving forward. It's best not to do the ums. I get into the habit of saying try to cut down on the ers, slow down your speaking, breathe, come to the end of the sentence, put in that full stop and take a breath. It's okay that if there's a couple of seconds of dead air there, the other person is still taking on that information and processing it. So it's a little bit like the sender-receiver model that I talk about in one of my training videos, where you're giving a piece of information and they're receiving. There is always a slight delay in time when you're actually presenting that piece of information. The other person, you're doing a download, the other person is doing an upload. They're then translating it through their value systems, their values and their perception, and how they want to take that on board and how they will decipher that, and then they'll download to then start to have a backwards and forwards communication. So two-way thing is communication, one way is pure presentation. So it depends on whether you need to do a presentation or a communication as to how much of the seconds you leave there for dead air. But even so, when you're doing a presentation, you need to leave a little bit of dead air there so that people are still translating it through their value system and that they're really taking that on board. And what you're doing then is reading body language when you actually have a bit of a live audience. If you don't have a live audience and if it is recorded, you just do need to speed that up a little bit so that people can then come back to and from and replay that. So it depends again on how you're doing that practicing and for what reason and the outcome, but definitely to practice out loud. What's happening is that you're hearing yourself out loud. So when you're watching it on a video replay, that you're getting to see it from a different perspective, because what's going on in your mind isn't necessarily what's going on through your mouth or through your body language. Always make sure that you come back to a smile, because it helps encourage the other person to want to take on that information and to then take it into their value system. So just to recap a little bit of that, practice, it helps build up your confidence in what you're presenting as well as with yourself. Practice with lots of different formats and mediums as well as with different peoples and groups. And even if it is the dog, still by practicing it out loud is fabulous. And then if you can actually practice with someone who can be your accountability buddy, what I would suggest with that is that you set homework for each other. Don't set homework just for yourself. And a lot of us, we do tend to do that when we're an entrepreneur because we're into continuous improvement. But ask for the other person to set you that little bit of homework. And it helps push your boundaries and your perception and value system a little bit more to again up the ante and make sure that you keep each other accountable. So put a SMART goal around it. SMART, specific, measurable, achievable or attainable. R is for realistic or, relevant. And then T is the time constraint or the time bound. So make sure that it covers off on the SMART for that bit of a goal, which is your homework. It'll help you then to practice it better and to achieve it and continue to improve and raise that bar. Overall, that in itself will help build your confidence so that when you're talking about something, when you're pitching about something, when you're trying to communicate and be that little bit more convincing and making sure that you're being authentic, it's helping you to with your leverageability with that other person. Practice. Don't just think that you'll do it off the cuff. Practice, practice, practice. So have a couple of little of those different spiels up your sleeve, a little bit like the elevator pitch. See, and as soon as I get in front of a camera, I start to get into the little habits of the It's okay. It's still being a bit normal to the other person, and that's okay. So everyone's very different in front of a camera, let alone when they're actually with another person. Practice your various different mediums and it'll help you with your confidence to come across being more authentic and leveraging that information to another person, helping them with their interpretation through their value system. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I'd love some feedback. Hop on my Facebook page, Lead Business Education. Give me some feedback, how you've practiced, what you did, what was the outcomes. Bye for now, and I'll see you next time.